Welcome, tennis fans, to another absolute blockbuster edition of our Deep Dive series. We are coming to you in the midst of a grass court season that has completely shattered expectations, rewritten the narratives, and left the entire tennis world utterly speechless. If you thought the storylines heading into Wimbledon were already set in stone, if you thought the hierarchy of women's tennis was stabilized at the very top, you were entirely mistaken. We have just witnessed a seismic shift on the immaculate lawns of the Steffi Graf Stadion at the Berlin Open, a result so stunning, so breathtaking in its execution, and so monumental in its implications that it has sent shockwaves from the German capital all the way across the globe. Today, we are breaking down a quarterfinal matchup that absolutely nobody, not the pundits, not the odds makers, and perhaps not even the players themselves, saw coming a week ago. It is the clash of the tournament, the quintessential battle of rising youth against battle-tested experience. We are talking about the sensational Alexandra Eala taking on the formidable, the resurgent, the former world number 3 and current world number 8, Elina Svitolina. Before we can even begin to preview this titanic quarterfinal showdown, we absolutely must take a step back and fully digest the magnitude of what has just transpired over the last 24 hours. Alexandra Eala, the 21-year-old prodigy from the Philippines, a player whose talent we have always recognized, but whose ultimate ceiling was still a subject of intense debate, has just delivered the defining performance of her young career. Let me paint the picture for you. The Berlin Open, a WTA 500 event, is one of the most prestigious stops on the calendar. The grass is notoriously slick, the bounces are low, and the conditions heavily favor the biggest servers and the most aggressive first-strike players on the tour. Enter Elina Svitolina, the world number 2, the former Wimbledon champion, a woman whose serve is widely considered the most lethal weapon in the women's game today. Svitolina was the overwhelming favorite, not just for the match, but for the entire tournament. And yet, on the sun-drenched center court Berlin, the script was unceremoniously torn to shreds by a young woman who simply refused to read it. Alexandra Eala defeated Elina Svitolina in straight sets 7-5, 6-4. Let those numbers sink in for a moment. This was not a lucky bounce. This was not a retirement. This was not a top-ranked player having a catastrophic off day and beating herself. This was a systematic, courageous, and tactically brilliant dismantling of the world number 2 by a player who had never reached these heights before. Eala walked onto that court against a towering opponent who hit 13 aces and won over 80% of her first serve points. Most players would crumble under that kind of relentless baseline pressure. In fact, Eala herself found herself in a deep hole early on, trailing 4-1 in the opening set. It looked like the typical narrative was unfolding, the powerful favorite overpowering the plucky underdog. But what happened next is the stuff of legends, the kind of sequence that alters the trajectory of a career forever. Eala did not panic. She did not rush. Instead, she found an extra gear of focus and intensity that we have rarely seen from someone her age. She began to read the Svitolina serve, stepping inside the baseline, taking the ball breathtakingly early, and neutralizing the sheer pace with impeccable timing. Eala won 6 of the next 7 games to snatch the first set out of thin air, leaving the crowd in absolute disbelief. She punished Svitolina's second serve, winning over 70% of the points when the Kazakh missed her first delivery. She converted critical break points with the ice-cold composure of a 10-year tour veteran. And when she finally secured match point after an hour and 32 minutes of grueling, high-stakes tennis, the emotion that poured out of her was universally relatable. She was visibly shaking. In her on-court interview, she admitted she was foggy, completely overwhelmed by the gravity of her achievement. The moment she called her father right there on the court, both of them screaming in pure, unadulterated joy, is already one of the most iconic images of the 2026 season. It was raw, it was real, and it signified the arrival of a superstar. This victory over Svitolina wasn't just a fluke, either. It followed a straight sets demolition of the dangerous Donna Vekic in the previous round, proving that Eala has fully unlocked the secrets of grass court tennis. She has won 8 of her last 9 matches on this surface, including a title run in Birmingham just weeks ago. She is riding a wave of momentum that is practically terrifying. The confidence she is exuding right now is palpable. You can see it in her footwork, in the way she holds her head high between points, and in her utter fearlessness when stepping into her shots. But the celebration must be short-lived, because the reward for this historic upset is a date with one of the most formidable competitors the sport has ever seen. Standing across the net in the quarterfinals will be Elina Svitolina, a woman who is authoring one of the most spectacular comeback stories in recent tennis history. Let's not forget who Elina Svitolina is. This is a former world number 3, an Olympic medalist, a tour finals champion, and a woman who has reached the semifinals of multiple Grand Slams. And in 2026, she is playing arguably the best tennis of her entire life. She enters this match with a jaw-dropping win-loss record for the year, having already captured titles in Auckland and the prestigious Italian Open in Rome. She has firmly re-established herself inside the top 10, currently sitting at world number 8. And she has done it through sheer willpower, tactical genius, and a level of physical conditioning that is second to none. Svitolina is the ultimate puzzle that so many players simply cannot solve. She is not going to blow you off the court with raw power like a Rybakina or a Sabalenka. Instead, she will slowly, methodically dissect your game. She will track down every single ball. She will force you to hit one extra shot time and time again, and she will mentally break you down until you are drowning in your own unforced errors. This is what makes this quarterfinal clash so incredibly compelling. It is a monumental clash of styles, generations, and momentums. On one side, you have the youthful exuberance, the explosive shot-making, and the giant-slaying confidence of Alexandra Eala. On the other side, you have the veteran savvy, the impenetrable defense, and the tactical mastery of Elina Svitolina. The whole tennis world is watching, and for good reason. There is no historical blueprint for this singles matchup. This will be their first ever meeting on the singles court, adding an extra layer of mystery and unpredictability to an already explosive encounter. They did share a court earlier this year in doubles, where Eala was actually on the winning side, but singles on the slick grass of Berlin is an entirely different universe. The stage is set at the Steffi Graf Stadion. The storylines are perfectly intertwined. Will the 21-year-old sensation continue her magical, giant-killing run and reach her first-ever grass court WTA 500 semifinal? Or will the veteran Ukrainian wall absorb the power, extinguish the fire, and march on toward yet another title in her spectacular 2026 campaign? The implications for Wimbledon are massive. The ranking points at stake are enormous. But more than anything, this is about the pure, unadulterated drama of elite sports. This is the kind of match that defines seasons. This is why we watch tennis. Now, let's transition into a granular, deep-dive analysis of exactly how this match will unfold, where it will be won and lost, and the tactical battle lines that both players must draw. To truly understand the chess match that is about to take place, we must examine the specific grass court dynamics that will dictate the flow of play. Grass is the most unique, volatile surface in tennis. The ball skids, it stays incredibly low, and it rewards players who can bend their knees, stay balanced, and strike the ball cleanly taken on the rise. Alexandra Eala has demonstrated over the past 2 weeks that she has completely embraced these requirements. Let's look at her forehand. Traditionally a heavy, topspin-laden shot built for clay and hard courts, Eala has flattened out her trajectory for the grass. By taking away some of the spin and driving through the ball more linearly, she is ensuring that her shots penetrate through the court rather than sitting up. Against Rybakina, this was crucial. Rybakina is tall and prefers the ball in her strike zone. Eala denied her that luxury by keeping the ball uncomfortably low. Furthermore, Eala's backhand down the line has become an absolute weapon of mass destruction. On grass, changing the direction of the ball is highly effective because it forces the opponent to abruptly shift their momentum, which is notoriously difficult on a slippery surface. Eala has been using her cross-court backhand to open up the angles, and then firing the down-the-line shot with lethal precision. But the most significant improvement in Eala's game, the factor that has truly elevated her to this giant-slaying level, is her return of serve. You do not beat Elena Rybakina without a world-class return game. Eala has shortened her backswing on the return, a necessary adjustment on grass where you simply do not have the time for a long, loopy preparation. She is using the server's pace against them, blocking the ball back deep into court to neutralize the advantage immediately. More importantly, she is punishing second serves. Eala stepped inside the baseline repeatedly against Rybakina, taking the ball early and immediately putting the world number 2 on the defensive. This aggressive returning mentality will be absolutely paramount against Svitolina. Why? Because Elina Svitolina's serve, while incredibly accurate and highly reliable, is not overpowering. Svitolina relies on placement, varying her spins, and hitting her spots to construct points. She will try to slide her first serve out wide to pull Eala off the court, opening up the space for a first strike winner. If Eala allows Svitolina to dictate the tempo behind her serve, it will be a long, exhausting day for the young Filipina. Eala must attack the Svitolina's second serve with the same venom she showed against Rybakina. She must step in, take it on the rise, and dictate the point from the very first strike. If Eala can consistently put Svitolina on her back foot immediately after the serve, she will drastically increase her chances of winning. However, attacking Svitolina is like trying to punch through a brick wall. This brings us to the core of Elina Svitolina's tactical genius. Svitolina is a master of court geometry and defensive resilience. She possesses an uncanny ability to absorb pace. The harder you hit the ball at her, the more comfortably she redirects it. On grass, this defensive prowess is actually amplified if utilized correctly. Svitolina will stay low, use her exceptional footwork to get behind every ball, and hit deep, neutralizing slices that skid away from the opponent. Svitolina knows that Eala is riding a wave of adrenaline and aggression. Svitolina's game plan will be to disrupt that rhythm. She will use the slice backhand heavily, forcing Eala to bend low and generate her own pace off a dead ball. She will throw in high, deep loops to push Eala back, and then suddenly inject pace down the line when Eala leaves a ball short. Svitolina is also a phenomenal counterpuncher. She baits her opponents into going for too much. She will leave a sliver of the line open, inviting Eala to go for the low percentage winner, and when Eala inevitably misses by an inch, the frustration begins to mount. This is a psychological warfare that Svitolina excels at. She makes you feel like the court is shrinking. She makes you feel like you have to hit the perfect shot just to win a point. For Eala, the challenge is immense. She must remain patient. She cannot afford to pull the trigger too early in the rally. Eala will have to construct points meticulously, perhaps hitting 3 or 4 high-quality offensive shots before finally putting the ball away. The moment Eala rushes, the moment she tries to end the point in 2 shots, is the moment Svitolina takes control of the match. Let us also discuss movement on the grass. Svitolina's footwork is legendary. She takes small, rapid adjustment steps that allow her to stay perfectly balanced, even when changing directions on the slick surface. Eala's movement has been a revelation this week, but it will be severely tested by Svitolina's ability to utilize the entire court. Svitolina will try to drag Eala forward with short, skidding slices, testing Eala's comfort level in the forecourt. Eala must be decisive when coming to the net. If she approaches, she must close the net tightly and put the volley away, because Svitolina's passing shots, particularly her running forehand, are world-class. Another fascinating element of this matchup is the mental and emotional toll of the previous round. Alexandra Eala has just achieved the pinnacle moment of her career, the high of beating the world number 2, the emotional release of calling her family, the media attention. It is a massive spike in emotional energy. In tennis, we often talk about the vulnerability of a player of the day after a massive upset. It is incredibly difficult to reset, to come back down to earth, and to find that exact same level of hyperfocus against an entirely different type of opponent. Svitolina, on the other hand, is a seasoned veteran. She has been in hundreds of quarterfinals. She knows how to manage her energy, how to compartmentalize the tournament, and how to stay emotionally level. Svitolina will look to exploit any potential emotional hangover from Eala. Svitolina will likely start the match with intense physicality. Try and make the first few games as grueling as possible to test Eala's legs and Eala's mind. If Eala has a slow start, if she is physically fatigued or mentally drained from the Rybakina match, Svitolina will be ruthless in capitalizing on it. Statistically, the models and the odds makers are leaning toward the veteran. Predictive models are giving Svitolina a roughly 72% chance of winning this match. The odds reflect the historical truth of tennis. Consistency and experience usually overcome sudden, meteoric spikes in form. Svitolina's sheer volume of match wins this year, her 34-8 record, speaks to a player who simply does not have bad days very often. However, those same models also suggest that Eala has a very strong chance of keeping the match incredibly tight, with a high probability of covering the game spreads. What the statistics cannot measure, however, is the intangible factor of belief. Alexandra Eala now genuinely believes she belongs on the same court as the top 5 players in the world. When a talented player finally matches their physical ability with absolute, unshakable belief, they become incredibly dangerous. If we look at the specific keys to victory, for Eala, it comes down to first serve percentage and unforced error management. Eala must land a high percentage of first serves to avoid Svitolina's aggressive returns on the second delivery. More importantly, Eala must find the delicate balance between aggression and control. She has to hit through Svitolina's defense without accumulating a massive unforced error count. For Svitolina, the key is depth and variety. Svitolina must keep the ball deep in Eala's side of the court, preventing the young Filipina from stepping in and taking the ball on the rise. Svitolina must also use her slice effectively to change the rhythm and keep the ball low out of Eala's strike zone. This match has the potential to be a grueling 3-set marathon. We might see a fascinating contrast where Eala dictates the early parts of the rallies with immense power, while Svitolina relies on her otherworldly defense to extend the points and force errors. It is a classic matchup of the immovable object meeting the unstoppable force. Can Eala sustain the otherworldly level she found against Rybakina? Can she hit through one of the best defenders of this generation? Or will Svitolina's experience, her tactical guile, and her relentless consistency prove to be an insurmountable hurdle for the rising star? As we look toward the conclusion of this spectacular week in Berlin, the stakes for both players simply cannot be overstated. We are merely days away from the start of Wimbledon, the grandest stage in all of tennis. The momentum gathered here at the Steffi Graf Stadium is priceless. For Elina Svitolina, a victory here is about solidifying her status as a genuine title contender at the All-England Club. Svitolina has tasted deep runs at Grand Slams before, but her form in 2026 suggests she might be ready to finally capture that elusive major championship. A deep run, or perhaps a title here in Berlin, would send a chilling message to the rest of the tour that Svitolina is a threat on all surfaces, and that her tactical mastery is only getting sharper with age. She has the tools, she has the fitness, and she has the unyielding competitive spirit. For Alexandra Eala, the implications are arguably even more profound. Regardless of the outcome of this quarterfinal, she has already announced her arrival to the highest echelons of the sport. The victory over Elena Rybakina will forever remain a cornerstone of her career, the moment she proved to herself and the world that she possesses the raw power and the mental fortitude to dismantle the very best. But a win against Svitolina, a win against a defensive maestro who has dominated the tour this year, that would elevate Eala from a dangerous dark horse to a legitimate phenomenon. It would signal that she is not just capable of a one-off spectacular performance, but that she possesses a tactical maturity to solve completely different styles of play on consecutive days. It would catapult her ranking, secure her seedings in future events, and make her one of the most feared unseeded or highly seeded players entering the Wimbledon draw. This quarterfinal is a microcosm of why we love tennis. It is a sport of brutal isolation, where two individuals step onto a rectangle of grass with nothing but racket and their own internal resolve. There is nowhere to hide. Every weakness is exposed, every strength is tested, and every tactical decision is magnified under the intense pressure of the moment. We are about to witness a beautiful clash of philosophies. The blistering, fearless aggression of a 21-year-old who feels completely invincible, matching up against a calculated, resilient, and masterfully constructed game of veteran who has seen it all and conquered it all. As fans, we are incredibly fortunate to witness this era of women's tennis. The depth of the tour is unprecedented, and the emergence of stars like Alexandra Eala ensures that the future of the sport is breathtakingly bright. Whether it is Eala continuing her magical run and painting the lines with her ferocious ground strokes, or Svitolina grinding down her opponent with spectacular retrieving and surgical precision, this match promises to deliver absolute fireworks. It is a battle of will, a battle of execution, and a battle for supremacy on the grass courts of Germany. Thank you so much for joining us for this comprehensive deep dive. We have broken down the tactics, the history, the emotions, and the massive stakes of this unforgettable Berlin Open quarterfinal. Make sure you do not miss a single point of this Eala versus Svitolina showdown. If you enjoyed this extensive analysis, please make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for daily in-depth breakdowns, tactical reviews, and comprehensive coverage of the entire grass court swing as we march relentlessly toward Wimbledon 2026. Drop a comment down below and let me know who you think takes this massive quarterfinal clash. Will it be the fearless youth of Alexandra Eala or the veteran mastery of Elina Svitolina? Let the debate begin. Enjoy the phenomenal tennis. And we will see you next time for another incredible breakdown.